Most people think radio silence means safety. No voices, no noise, just static fading into the cold. But sometimes silence isn't empty. Sometimes it's listening back. Tonight's story takes us high into the mountains of Colorado, where one man kept watch over an old radio station buried in snow, alone in the middle of a winter storm, until the signal started whispering his name. They told me the night shifts at Ridgeway Station were easy money. All I had to do was keep the transmitter alive, make sure the signal didn't drop, and log any interference. Most nights, nothing happened. Just the low hum of the generator and the soft hiss of static that filled the control room like white noise for the soul. The station sat halfway up a frozen mountain in Colorado, far enough from town that the road disappeared under snow half the year. On calm nights, I could step outside and hear nothing but wind. Not even the trees made a sound up there. I started that winter shift in early December. The storms rolled in hard that year. Every night the wind screamed against the windows, rattling the thin metal walls like an animal trying to get in. Inside, the heat from the old radiators mixed with the electric buzz of the equipment. The smell of dust and ozone never went away. I worked alone, always alone. My boss only came up during the day to check the readings, then drove back down before dark. The snow made it dangerous after sunset, or at least that's what they said. I didn't mind. There was something comforting about the isolation. The nights had their own rhythm. Coffee at 10. Signal check at midnight. Weather log every hour until dawn. Sometimes, when I was bored, I'd turn the frequency knob a little and listen to the static shift, the endless she of the ether, like the sky itself was breathing. You'd be surprised what kind of things drift through those frequencies. Old radio chatter, fragments of emergency calls, the occasional stray broadcast from some distant tower long since forgotten. But sometimes there were voices. Not the kind you can identify, not human chatter or CB radio noise. Just faint whispers, half-formed, like someone mumbling underwater. I'd caught them maybe twice before that night. Both times, they faded as soon as I tried to record them. I remember telling myself it was nothing. Overlapping waves, atmospheric bounce, coincidence. You tell yourself a lot of things to stay sane when you're alone on a mountain. That night, though, the storm hit harder than any before. By midnight, the wind was howling so loud I could barely hear my own thoughts. The power flickered. The red light above the transmitter blinked in warning, and the signal began to dip. I cursed, grabbed my headset, and started adjusting the frequency dial. The static roared. The speakers crackled. And then, through the white noise, a voice came through. Soft, fragile, like someone whispering right next to my ear. Don't turn off the light. You're waking it up. At first, I thought it was feedback. The storm was hammering the tower, and sometimes the interference turned into strange patterns, pulses, echoes, even half-formed tones that almost sounded like speech. But this was different. The voice was too clear. I froze with my hand still on the dial. The static hissed, then the voice came again, a whisper barely louder than breath. Don't turn off the light. You're waking it up. The words crawled through the speakers like smoke. I pulled the headset away and just stared at it, half expecting to see someone standing behind me. Nothing but the empty room and the red glow of the signal monitors blinking in rhythm. I told myself it had to be a stray transmission, maybe a trucker caught in the storm, bleeding onto the frequency. But when I adjusted the dial, just a small nudge to the left, the voice followed. It didn't fade. It didn't distort. It moved with me. You just changed the channel, it whispered. Why did you do that? My heart stopped cold. The voice wasn't describing the storm. It was describing me. I tried another channel, then another. Each time I twisted the knob, the voice shifted, repeating what I was doing a second after I did it, sometimes a breath ahead, as if it already knew. You're standing now. You're looking at the window. Don't go there, Eli. That last part made me freeze. It said my name. I hadn't spoken a word since the transmission began. No one else knew I was working tonight. I hadn't even radioed my boss in hours. The storm outside roared like it was trying to tear the walls apart. Snow smacked against the glass. I turned off the external mic, unplugged the receiver, and switched to backup mode, a completely isolated circuit. For a few seconds, the room went dead silent. The kind of silence that's so deep you can hear your own pulse. Then the speaker crackled again, even though the unit was off. That won't help. I stumbled backward, knocking over my coffee. The liquid hissed as it hit the floor heater. My breath came out in short, white clouds. The temperature had dropped fast. I didn't even realize I was shaking until the flashlight in my hand rattled against the console. I grabbed the transmitter's main switch, the one that would shut down the entire system. But before I could pull it, the voice came again. This time, softer, closer. Please, don't turn off the light. I spun around, shining the flashlight across the room. The beam cut through the haze of dust and caught the window. The outside was nothing but snow, a white void pressing against the glass. But for a split second, I saw something move in that reflection. A shadow, tall and thin, standing just behind me. When I turned, the room was empty. The static had stopped. The voice was gone. But somewhere deep in the system, the transmitter light was still pulsing, a steady red heartbeat in the dark. And faintly, through the headset lying on the desk, I heard a single broken word, barely a whisper under the hum of electricity. Cold. After that night, I started hearing things differently. Every crackle, every hum, every flicker of static, it all felt alive somehow. The radio wasn't just receiving signals anymore. It was listening back. I told myself it was exhaustion. I hadn't slept in almost 30 hours. The storm hadn't let up either. It screamed against the metal siding like a living thing. When the generator flickered, the lights dimmed for a second, and the shadows in the corners stretched too long, too slow. I decided to do a full walk of the station, just to clear my head. The corridors were narrow and cold, lined with steel doors and yellowing safety posters that peeled at the edges. The whole place smelled of dust, copper, and old wires. My boots echoed against the concrete floor as I moved through the main hall. When I reached the entrance corridor, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The floor near the door was wet. Not from condensation, freshly wet, as if snow had just melted there. I crouched down and saw them. Footprints. A set of dark, damp prints leading away from the entrance. Bare footprints. They were human, small, maybe the size of a woman's, but the spacing was odd. Too far apart, like whoever made them was walking slowly but deliberately. I looked at the door. Still locked. The frost on the windows was unbroken. No sign of entry. The prints trailed across the hall, down toward the main transmission room, the one that required a key card only I had. My hand instinctively went to my pocket. The card was still there. The prints led straight to that door. And stopped. There were no prints coming back. My heart thudded in my throat. I grabbed the radio mic and called down to the secondary line, just out of habit, even though no one would answer at this hour. Base station, this is Ridgeway 1. I think we've got... The speaker hissed to life mid-sentence. That same whispering voice returned. Don't follow the footprints. I froze. The air in the hall grew heavy, thick with static. I could feel it, a low vibration through the metal floor, like the hum of something huge buried beneath us. I tried to speak, but my mouth had gone dry. I wanted to believe this was interference, maybe a replay of the old signal. But no, it said that in real time, I looked down again. The footprints glistened under the fluorescent light, still wet, still perfect. I stepped closer to the door. The handle was cold enough to sting my skin. I hesitated, then pressed my ear against the metal. Nothing. No movement, no breath. But just as I started to pull back, I heard it, faint, muffled, like someone whispering from the other side. It wasn't words this time, just breathing. Slow, deep, and wrong. Like the lungs behind that door were too big. The lights flickered once. The hum deepened. And then the voice returned, softer now, almost pleading. Please, don't open the door. I stumbled backward, heart racing, staring at the footprints that ended at the threshold. When I blinked, just once, they were gone. The floor was dry again. But the door handle was still cold. And on the other side, something exhaled. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. Not after what I heard behind that door. For the next few hours, I sat in the control room with every light on, staring at the monitors like they could protect me. The storm outside had gotten worse. Snow slamming against the windows, wind howling through the vents like a living thing. But the strangest part? The radio was quiet. Completely quiet. No static, no signal, nothing. Just a dead, humming silence that felt heavier than any sound. Around 3 a.m., the power flickered. The fluorescent lights dimmed to a dull yellow, and the monitors buzzed with faint interference. I could hear the low whine of the transmitter behind the walls, that familiar electric heartbeat of the station. Then came the voice again, through the main speaker this time. Louder, closer. Eli, don't go near the door. My blood ran cold. I hadn't touched the mic. The transmitter was in standby mode. This wasn't a broadcast. I backed away from the console. Who is this? I shouted. My voice sounded small, swallowed by the static. Who's talking? The answer came instantly, not through the speaker this time, but through the handheld radio clipped to my belt. Please, don't let the light go out. I froze. My flashlight lay on the desk, half drained. The room's overheads were flickering harder now, shadows stretching and bending along the walls. I could see my own reflection in the window glass, pale, sweating, terrified. Then the power died. Every light, every monitor, gone. The silence was so total, I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. Only one light remained, the red emergency glow from the transmitter panel in the hallway. It blinked slowly, casting long pulsing shadows across the floor. And then, from somewhere deep inside the building, I heard the door creak. The same one at the end of the hall, the one with the footprints. My radio hissed, louder now, filled with static that almost sounded like breathing. I raised it to my ear, hands trembling, and the voice came again, whispering so softly it barely sounded human. He's awake. The words hit like ice in my spine. I dropped the radio, and it clattered against the floor, still crackling. The red light flickered twice, once twice, then steadied. That's when I heard it. Footsteps. Not running, not hurried, slow, wet, dragging footsteps coming from the end of the hall. I turned my flashlight on, its weak beam slicing through the dark. I aimed it down the corridor. The air shimmered with frost, and the smell of ozone filled my nose. The footsteps grew louder. Closer, I whispered. Who's there? No answer. The beam shook across the walls until it hit the transmission room door. It was slightly open now, just a few inches. I could see the faint red light spilling out from inside. My breath fogged in the air. The temperature had dropped fast. My teeth chattered as I reached out, hand shaking, and pushed the door open wider. The room was empty. The floor was wet. And written across the condensation on the glass of the main transmitter panel were 3 words, traced by a fingertip from the inside. He saw me. The emergency light flickered violently, then went out completely. I was left in absolute darkness. And in that darkness right behind me, something breathed. When the lights came back, it was already morning. The snow outside had stopped falling, but the world still looked buried, quiet and white, like nothing had ever happened. I don't remember much after the blackout, just fragments. The radio lying on the floor, still hissing. My flashlight beam spinning wildly across the walls. And that sound? The breathing, impossibly close, as if someone was leaning over my shoulder. When the sun rose, the power surged back on. The heater kicked in. The room filled with the familiar hum of electricity again, and just like that, the world felt normal. Except for the message. The words were still on the glass. He saw me, written backwards, from the inside of the transmitter booth. I wiped them away with my sleeve, but the condensation formed again, almost immediately, tracing the same letters on its own. By the time my supervisor, Carl, arrived, I was sitting in the control room with my back to the door, staring at the silent monitors. He looked at me and frowned. "Long night?" he asked. I didn't answer. Couldn't. He went straight to the system logs, scrolling through the automated recordings. I watched his face change, confusion, then disbelief, then something close to fear. "There was a signal sent out from here last night," he said slowly. At 3:12 a.m., I shook my head. That's impossible. I shut everything down. The transmitter was offline, but the data didn't lie. The log showed a single broadcast, lasting exactly 3 seconds. Origin, Room 3, Transmission Booth. Carl pulled up the audio file. We both leaned close as he pressed play. For a moment, there was only static, faint, distant, like wind blowing through a tunnel. Then came a voice. A woman's voice, soft, shaky, terrified. He saw me. The sound cut out. Carl looked at me. I looked back. Neither of us said a word. He tried to laugh it off, but I could see his hands shaking. We checked the booth again. No sign of entry. No footprints. The door was still locked from the inside. By noon, Carl had called the higher-ups in Denver. They told him to shut down the station until further notice. By the end of the week, the Ridgeway facility was abandoned. I quit that same day, packed my things, and left the mountain behind. That was 5 years ago. Sometimes, when I can't sleep, I turn on my old radio, just for the noise, that soft, comforting hiss of static that used to fill my nights. But every once in a while, between frequencies, I hear something. Not a voice, not exactly, more like a breath trying to form words. And if I listen long enough, through the layers of static, I swear I can still hear her. Don't turn off the light. Some voices were never meant to be heard, and some frequencies were never meant to be found. If you enjoyed this story, give us a like. It helps more lost souls find their way here. And if you want to hear more true horror tales like this one, subscribe and stay with us in the dead of night.